My name is Emily Carter. And if there's one thing life taught me, it's this. Money doesn't just buy comfort. It buys power. It buys silence. It buys the right to hurt people without consequences. I wasn't born into that world. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, in a neighborhood where streetlights flickered at night and people locked their doors before sunset. My mother worked double shifts at a diner. My father disappeared when I was 6, leaving behind nothing but debt and a silence that lived in our house for years. We weren't just poor. We were invisible. I wore hand-me-down clothes, patched my own shoes, and learned early how to stretch a meal so it lasted 2 days. I watched other kids talk about vacations, birthday parties, and new phones, while I learned how to smile and pretend I didn't feel left out. But poverty does something strange to you. It sharpens your senses. It teaches you to read people, to notice tone, body language, intentions. And from a very young age, I understood something most people don't. Rich and poor don't just live differently. They exist in different worlds. I promised myself one thing when I was 16. I wouldn't stay where I was born. I studied harder than anyone I knew. Scholarships became my escape. Nights were spent working at a grocery store, mornings at school, afternoons tutoring kids richer than me. I watched them complain about things I couldn't even dream of having. And then, I got into Columbia University, New York City. The first time I stepped onto campus, I felt it immediately, the difference in the air. People walked with confidence, like they belonged everywhere. No apology. I felt like an outsider pretending to belong, until I met him. Alexander Hayes. He wasn't loud. He didn't need to be. Some people walk into a room and demand attention. Alexander walked in and owned it without trying. Tall, calm, perfectly dressed, but not in a flashy way. In a way that said, "This is normal for me." I learned quickly who he was. Hayes Financial Group. Old money, political connections, private schools, generational wealth. We were assigned to the same economics seminar. The first time he spoke to me, I thought it was a mistake. "You're Emily, right?" he asked. I nodded. "You corrected the professor today," he said. "Most people wouldn't risk that." "He was wrong," I replied. He smiled, and something shifted. We started studying together. Then coffee. Then long conversations that lasted until the campus emptied out. He asked about my life, and unlike everyone else, he didn't look uncomfortable when I told the truth. He didn't pity me. He respected me. That was new. Months passed, and without realizing it, he became part of my everyday life. He drove me home when trains stopped running. He brought me coffee before exams. He listened when I talked about my mom, my fears, my constant feeling of not being enough. And slowly, I fell in love. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, deeply, dangerously. But love doesn't erase differences. It magnifies them. The first time I entered his world, I understood that. He invited me to a party at a Manhattan penthouse. Glass walls, skyline view, people dressed like they belonged on magazine covers. Conversations about investments, startups, trust funds. I felt like I had stepped into someone else's life. Then I heard it. "She's the scholarship girl, from Ohio, right?" I heard her mom's a waitress. A soft laugh. "Alexander always likes fixing broken things." The words didn't hit loudly. They sank quietly. That hurt more. Alexander heard them too. He walked straight toward the group, took my hand and said calmly, "Emily isn't broken. She's stronger than anyone here." We left minutes later. But that night, something changed inside me. Because I realized something. I wasn't just dating a rich man. I was stepping into a battlefield. And the first real enemy was his mother. Victoria Hayes. Graceful, controlled, beautiful in a cold, untouchable way. The first time she looked at me, she smiled politely. But her eyes scanned everything. My clothes, my posture, the way I spoke. Like an evaluation. Like I was a candidate, not a person. "Emily," she said softly, "where is your family from?" "Ohio." "And your parents?" "My mother works at a diner." A pause. A small nod. "Hard-working people are admirable," she replied. It sounded kind, but it felt like a verdict. After that, things started changing. Alexander got busier. Meetings, family obligations, business dinners. Then came the offers, internships I didn't apply for, scholarships that required relocation, job opportunities far from New York. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Then one night, I overheard Victoria speaking on the phone. "She's talented," she said calmly, "but she doesn't belong in our world. It's best if she builds her own life elsewhere." My chest tightened. It wasn't about hate. It was about removal. She wasn't attacking me. She was erasing me. And slowly, it worked. Alexander and I started arguing, not loudly, just tension, distance, misunderstandings, pressure from his family, expectations. "Emily," he said one night, exhausted, "you don't understand what this world demands." I looked at him. "And you don't understand what it took for me to reach it." Silence. Love doesn't die in explosions. It fades in small, painful moments. And one day, it ended. No screaming, no drama, just a quiet goodbye in the middle of a city that never noticed. I left New York soon after, not because I was broken, because I refused to be small in someone else's world. Years passed. I worked, harder than ever. Corporate finance, late nights, endless effort. I built my own name, my own reputation, no connections, no safety net. Just discipline. Pain became my fuel, rejection became my motivation, and slowly I rose. Manager, director, partner. By 32, I wasn't surviving anymore. I was powerful, not old money powerful, but self-made. And one day, fate did something unexpected. Our company merged with Hayes Financial Group. I saw the name on the contract and felt my heartbeat slow. After all these years, the past had returned. The first board meeting was quiet, formal. Then the door opened. Alexander walked in, older, sharper, tired in a way success can't hide. Our eyes met. Recognition. Memory. But no words. Then another door opened. Victoria Hayes entered, elegant as ever. Confident. Until she saw me sitting at the head of the table. Her expression changed, just slightly, just enough. And for the first time, the balance shifted. I wasn't the poor girl in borrowed clothes anymore. I was the partner approving million-dollar decisions. The meeting continued professionally. Numbers, strategies, expansion. But beneath it all, history breathed. Afterward, Alexander approached me. "Emily." My name sounded different after all these years. "Hi," I replied calmly. "You've done well. So have you." Silence again. Not awkward, just heavy. Then Victoria stepped forward. "Miss Carter," she said politely. "Hayes." Her eyes studied me again, but this time, it wasn't evaluation. It was realization. She knew. The girl she once tried to move out of their world had built one of her own. And now, we were equals. Not by love, by power. But life wasn't done. Weeks later, I discovered something disturbing. The merger wasn't clean. Hayes Financial had hidden losses, risky investments, manipulated reports, illegal, dangerous, and the responsibility was being pushed toward my department, toward me, a scapegoat. Old habits, old tactics, rich protect rich, poor take the fall, except this time I wasn't poor, and I wasn't naive. I gathered evidence, emails, records, internal approvals. Then I requested a private meeting. Alexander and Victoria sat across from me. I placed the file on the table. "You tried to bury this," I said calmly. Silence. Victoria's voice stayed steady. "Business decisions are complex." "This isn't complexity," I replied. "This is fraud." Alexander looked at the documents, and his expression darkened. He hadn't known. That was clear. Victoria remained calm. "What do you want, Emily?" Not apology, not forgiveness. A negotiation. I leaned forward. "I want transparency, public correction, and full accountability. And if we refuse?" I met her gaze. "Then this goes to federal regulators tomorrow." The room went still. For the first time in my life, the richest woman I had ever known looked cornered. Because power only works when the other person has none. And I had built mine. Days later, the corrections were announced publicly. The company stabilized. No scandal, no destruction. Just truth. And that was my revenge. Not by ruining them, but by standing where they once stood, and choosing integrity. Weeks later, Alexander met me again. No anger, he asked quietly. I shook my head. Anger is for people who feel powerless. And you? I learned something, I said. Rich and poor isn't about money. About who you become when you finally have power. He nodded slowly. I should have fought harder back then. Maybe, I replied. But if you had, I might never have become who I am now. We stood there, not as lovers, not as strangers, but as two people shaped by the same past. Different worlds, different paths, same lesson. I walked away that night, feeling lighter than I had in years, because for the first time, I understood. I didn't need their acceptance. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need the world that once rejected me. I had built my own. And in that world, I wasn't the poor girl trying to belong. I was the woman who created her own place. My name is Emily Carter. And I wasn't born rich, but I learned something far more powerful. Money can change your life, but strength changes your destiny.